For the last couple of weeks, I've been totally engrossed in Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Nintendo's new release, focusing on speedrunning bite-sized challenges of old NES games, made its way inside my home with some neat pins, box cover art cards, and an awesome gold replica NES cart and stand. But despite how cool these shell pieces are and how much I'm loving the game personally, the game does come with its fair share of flaws. So I'd like to talk today about the good and the bad of Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Is this game something that should sit on the World Champion podium, or just something that should have been included as a perk for Nintendo Switch Online members? To start off, I'd like to talk about the good in this game. As I mentioned, I do love this game, and I think it would be disingenuous to start off railing against the things that I don't like. One of this game's biggest strengths, in my opinion, is its presentation. With its vaporwave aesthetic and incredibly clean and snappy UI, looking through the dozens of this game's challenges is very satisfying. Most of these challenges are locked from the start, but you will quickly earn plenty of in-game coins to unlock them all by playing the games you start with. Funny enough, when I first started playing the game, I didn't leave the first challenge, Mush Zoom, aka getting the first mushroom in Mario 1, until I had amassed hundreds of coins. It's so quick and easy to get in and start a challenge, and so quick to retry, it's very easy to fall into a sort of trance of just trying and retrying a game for faster scores. Getting an A rank is typically pretty easy, and you get a unique badge for accomplishing that feat for each individual game, but getting an S rank can be tough. This challenge of mastering small segments of games I've played more casually in the past really made me appreciate the mechanics and movement to a level I would never go out of my way to do when playing normally. And that feeling of mastering a challenge and finally getting that S rank is just so good. The anticipation leading into the finish and hearing that snap and hearing the S pop up never got old, even after getting the very last one. However, this does lead to one of my first complaints about the game. Once you do get an S rank on all the games, there's really nothing in the game to help push you further. Nothing to motivate you to lower that time even lower. No specific challenges, no rank better than an S, no dev times, and most importantly, no in-game leaderboards. Now, if you've been following this game at all, you're probably well aware at this point about the lack of in-game leaderboards. You cannot view times at all for anyone else, strangers, friends, or otherwise, outside of the weekly challenge rankings you get for the World Championships mode, and even that is limited to those in close proximity to you, and then the number one player of overall for each game. Now, I do appreciate being able to watch the number one player and their ghost data, but this is something that should be always available, not just for the 5 games chosen each week out of the 150 plus, and not just for the number one player overall. I would be motivated to push myself further if I could see where my friends ranks or where I sat in the world scale, or if I could even view ghost data more easily. Now, you could circumvent this a little bit to an extent, like myself, by joining a community where people are sharing times, such as speedrun.com, a group message with friends, possibly a Discord community with different threads for each game. Shout out to the Bird Dog Gaming Discord server. But these should not be a requirement. This should not be so difficult, and I don't really understand this decision. It feels so counterintuitive to make a collection of 40-year-old games and have the people speedrun them and compete weekly in a game called the World Championships mode and then not have readily accessible leaderboards. And the people out there buying this game aren't your normal run-of-the-mill casual players. At least it doesn't feel like it was marketed to those people. It feels like it was marketed to freaks like me who want to obsess over a second or a fraction of a second in vertical slices of games that were created before I was even born. Hopefully, this complaint can be addressed in a post-launch update. People have been very vocal about their desire to have leaderboards included, but I don't feel confident Nintendo will take that criticism and act on it. Now, speaking of the World Championships mode, I do want to touch a bit on that a little bit more. I think the overall format is fine. Having a select few games each week for everyone to focus on is a good idea and helps ensure that people are really honing in on the same things together each week. I do wish, however, that the rankings would be cumulative instead of individual for each game. It feels a little odd to me to remove that necessity or to improve across the whole swath of 5 games each week in favor of just maybe honing in on one of them on their own. Or you could just have rankings for both, which would be a better option, but alas. Outside of this World Championship mode, there is a silver and gold competition mode that takes place each week. These are elimination style events where you compete in a subset of already narrowed down selection of 5 games like the World Championship mode against other players. Well, other players' ghost data. This mode feels a little bit like a miss for me as well. I basically just play it once each week to get the win, and I don't touch this mode again until the next week. I understand that ghost data makes matchmaking faster, or just instantaneous, and is maybe a little easier to get accurate times to decide the winners, but I don't have that same competitive push to play this if I know I'm just playing against someone else's ghost time from a past entry. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's not that big of a deal because I can still pretend it's a real player to some extent, even though I know it's just a replay, but knowing it is just ghost data takes some of the wind out of my sails. These frequent and in my opinion easily avoidable problems actually make me laugh a bit. Like, they have something really good here, but they can't help but step on rakes that they're setting on the grounds themselves. I can ignore these a little bit because I'm having fun, but imagine this, it feels a bit like I was invited to a new pizza restaurant by a friend, and they swore I would love the food so much, but then the restaurant just served me pizza from Pizza Hut, some pepperoni pizza from Pizza Hut, and you know, I love pepperoni pizza from Pizza Hut, but I was kind of expecting something a little bit more complex, a little more deep, something a little bit more worth the visit. I will gladly eat the pizza, but I won't be urging my other friends to go and get a slice themselves. Now to move on to something else, the game selection. I haven't really touched on that yet, but overall I think it's solid. You've got your bona fide classics with your Mario 1 through 3s, Zelda, Metroid, Donkey Kong, Kirby. You have your fun, interesting picks like Mario Lost Levels, Kid Icarus, Excitebike, and you even get to experience some games that are probably better off not experienced these days with the poorly aged Balloon Fight and the bane of my existence, Ice Climber. These last couple games are important to the lineage of Nintendo and the history, but they were tough for me to enjoy or want to replay. Luckily they're both a little light on the challenges, so I just got my S ranks and I called it a day. Down the road, I would like to see them add some more games. Punch-Out is a big missing one in my opinion. I also think it'd be cool to add some more non-conventional picks, like maybe get through a selection of bosses in Earthbound Beginnings or quickly get through a map in the original Fire Emblem. It could be neat, even if those games aren't necessarily easily as translatable into what people commonly associate with speedrunning, but could be good to mix it up. And within each of those games, for the most part, I do think the challenges chosen for each game are acceptable. Each game has its fun challenges, but I do think they could do a little bit more here and there. A lot of the games really focus in on early portions of each individual game, and some games have a bit too much fluff. Things like grabbing a turnip on Mario 2 in 1 second, or grabbing the fairy right above you in Zelda 2 in a second, feel like a bit of a waste of my time. There's no real desire for me to compete in these quick events online and shave down a fraction of a second. Instead, I wish there were more of these 15 to 30 second events that really allow you to make mistakes and improve. Maybe they could add more of these down the line as well as the year goes. Now at the beginning of this video I briefly mentioned Nintendo Switch Online. I do want to touch a bit more on why I think NSO would have been a decent way to introduce the idea of this game. But to be clear though, before I expand, I prefer this approach with a standalone game that I can buy and play and throw on the shelf, personally. But I think Nintendo could have easily implemented this into NSO and maybe even continued to build and expand on it across different systems on that service. Now if you've been using NSO for a few years now, you may remember the SP or special versions of games that would occasionally make their way to the service in the NES and SNES apps. These SP games were basically save states in a unique location presenting a unique challenge for the player. Sounds a lot like what this game actually is. And I cannot really recall Nintendo adding many SP games recently. It seems like they really died down back in 2022, over 2 years ago, other than randomly adding one game last Halloween for Ninja Jeju-Maru-Con. It seems like Nintendo made the decision to stop making these challenges in favor of making something like Nintendo World Championships. I think if Nintendo instead implemented these World Championships with weekly challenges through utilizing more of these SP games, it could have spurred some interest with more people staying involved with NSO. You know, and maybe that doesn't make as many dollars as selling a standalone game does, but it could have been pretty cool. They could have also merged this together with the relatively new missions that are in NSO, allowing players to unlock platinum coins for doing random little challenges within NSO. Just a thought, not sure how well that would have worked, but I think it could have been something neat. But once again, I do like having a dedicated game more myself. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition is a tough one to recommend to everybody. For someone like me, it feels like it was made in a lab to hit all of my dopamine receptors and keep me attached to the controller. For others, it probably feels like it's a little light on content and is missing some features that you may desire. This game is what it is. If it does not look like a game for you, it probably isn't. There's no secret sauce behind the curtain that will get people who aren't interested in A, speedrunning, and or B, NES games into this game. But if you like playing these Nintendo classics and competing against yourself and sometimes others, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition might be for you. Fingers crossed from me for an SNES Edition sometime down the road. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, giving it a thumbs up down below helps a lot, and if you want to see more videos from me, reviews or otherwise, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. I plan on continuing to play this game for the remainder of the year, or as long as the weekly challenges are alive, and continuing to get those S ranks and lowering my times and having a blast while doing it. Look out for those videos each week after the events go live with my times. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.